Hello and welcome back to Top Hat Chat with myself, Street, and the Top Hat Gaming Man. Today we are going to be doing a user-submitted question regarding the differences between gaming culture in the UK and the US.
Yes.
Specifically, retro gaming culture.
Sorry to interrupt you, we are doing this live on YouTube at the same time. You're watching a pre-recorded video at the moment.
They're all pre-recorded.
Yes, YouTube.
And you call me stupid.
Yes, but you know, it's not pre-recorded, it's both. It's both. It's live and pre-recorded, isn't it? Depending on how you're watching right now. But yes, that question was from the real Chambos.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to throw that out there. We're going to start doing it. I mean, there's not a lot that I can really add to the conversation. It's going to be more of you educating me on your opinions.
I have spent quite a lot of time in America. I think I've visited the country 5 times.
Yeah, you've been to about 36 different states.
25 different states. So
lazy.
Half of them.
Lazy.
Half of them.
Yeah.
And my last visit lasted 3 months as well, and I got to see Donald Trump come to power. I was actually there.
Yeah. Don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but again, politics, we're not going there. Entertaining.
Yes, yes.
At least.
But anyway, we're talking about the differences between the two gaming cultures, and I think the differences are quite vast.
Yeah, which is why you chose this particular comment.
Yes, because it is worth discussing because they are so different in my opinion. Especially if you look to the past. The past is where the real differences are. I suppose.
I mean, I know a little bit about the past, I suppose. As far as
the past, is that where you're basically really old people? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I suppose the middle somewhere.
The middle past.
Yeah, middle past is what I'm going to say. Because obviously we had the great North American video game crash.
Yes, what they just refer to as the video game crash for some reason.
They think it happened everywhere.
Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't. Silly Americans. So that happened. And while the whole of America must have been depressed and miserable because they had nothing to do apart from watch baseball, which I've heard is miserable.
Yeah, it probably is.
I think didn't you go to a game?
No, of course not. I'm not that lowbrow.
I thought you might have just gone for a hot dog.
No.
I know how much you love sausage.
I did go to a football game, and when I say football game, I mean what they would call soccer.
Oh, okay.
That's
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I went to a university soccer game. That word sounds dirty, doesn't it? It does.
Anyway, where was I?
We were talking about the differences. Let's go right back to the beginning of gaming history somewhat, at least within the home.
Oh, no, sorry, just the end of that comment that I was going to make was, so they had nothing to do apart from watch baseball, which sounds miserable. We were over here tinkering with our microcomputers.
Yes, but before all that, there's a before. So
we'll go back before, that's fair enough.
I suppose the genesis of it all has to start really, I suppose, with Pong consoles. So you're familiar with Pong?
No, what's Pong?
Yes, I hope you're being sarcastic.
I say sarcastically.
Yes.
Yes. Tell me about Pong.
So yeah, you know, like the tennis style game with the knobs, what you play on
must
television.
love it.
Yes. So yeah, you get a whole system to play just one game. I'm pretty sure they were popular in both nations. And then past that, you had the Atari 2600, which was popular again in both nations. But then something really weird happened past that. After the Atari 2600, Brits began gaming on computers instead, personal computers, or what we like to call the microcomputers. So systems like the ZX Spectrum, which is British, the Acorn Electron, British, BBC Micro, British, and then a lot of American systems as well, which was highly popular over here, like the Commodore 64. For example.
There we go.
So you had all these great micros, which had a great range of games. And a little bit later, you had the Amstrad CPC 464, which was great as well. And then you even got high-end ones as well, like you had the Amiga, and you had the Atari ST, which was 16-bit as well. So they were fantastic. You've got a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you say anything about the Dragon 32, or is
no,
there a reason why you missed it? Is there a reason why you missed that one?
There's no reason other than the fact it was more obscure than some. There was so many microcomputers that it would be impossible for me to run over every single one.
Because that was Welsh. That's the only bit of information I know about that. They got in on it as well. Did Scotland have a go?
They probably did. There must be Scottish microcomputers. In fact, Rockstar Games, that all started up in Scotland, developing games on microcomputers, and that's where the GTA franchise came on. So the microcomputer boom in the UK contributed a ridiculous amount to gaming history, and that's something else sad as well. The Americans often credit Japan as the main source for like gaming history, which I find really odd. It's like as if everything revolves around Japan, and I suppose that goes back to their crash again, because for some reason everyone was so heavily invested in Atari that once people stopped buying games for that system, it kind of just died, and it took what's it called, Nintendo to come along to the market with their NES before anyone was gaming.
Yeah.
Again, where people didn't stop gaming in the UK.
It must have been a really miserable time.
It must have been, yes. Well, saying I don't think it was, because people only stopped playing games because obviously they were bored of games. Like people who did like games, they probably wasn't even aware of this crash.
Well, to be fair, there's a few comments that we've had when we've done things before where people have said, I was gaming.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no crash for me.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that is a thing.
Yeah, and the arcades, they never stopped being popular over there, as far as I'm aware.
So, I mean, I suppose the great North American video crash, I mean, well, the great video game crash, which we refer to as the North American video game crash,
personally like...
actually was just...
the Atari crash.
Yeah, and it was a change in the way people actually engaged with gaming.
Yeah.
Rather than a crash, I suppose.
People just stopped. It should have been called the North American Atari crash. Yeah. That's not the video game. Right?
So
that's hyperbole.
Yeah. So we've pushed that even more out of the window.
Yeah, exactly.
More than usual, which is nice.
So that's the first big difference. Obviously, we had the micro scene. They had the video game crash. That's the first big difference in cultures.
Okay.
And then we talk about retro gamers, the retro gamers of today. I went to a gaming convention in the US, and I've been to a lot over here. You've even been to.
I've been to one. Yeah. I'm going again soon.
And I went to see some panels with a lot of their retro gaming YouTubers, all the people who've appeared over the years on that. What's that? Retroware TV. It was a website.
Oh, I vaguely know something about
basically, everyone used to appear in it, like Pat the NES Punk, the Gaming Historian, Game Chasers, all things like that. And people was asking them questions. And it was really sad, because they was not so much sad, but sad for their culture as someone looking in on it. That they was all giving the same stock answers to the same questions. Like people would ask them a question and they would all answer it in the same way. Like, what's your favourite system? And I think every single one of them said the NES. Like all of them.
Yeah, that's... I don't think you'd get anywhere near those kind of...
I don't think anyone would say that at a UK convention.
I think if you got Dan Ibbotson from Slopes Game Room, Guru Larry and Ashens in the same room and asked them what their favourite console is, they'd all be different.
Yeah, they would definitely all be different.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you could literally add every UK YouTuber. If you had Octavia... I can't even pronounce my words now. Octavia's Kitten, Nostalgia Nerd, Retro Man Cave. You had them all. I bet most of them would give you a completely different system each.
Yeah. It's nice that you got over fumbulating all of your worms.
I did. It's hard when talking about consoles. Sometimes.
Yeah, so more history. I want more history.
So yes, going back to the YouTubers as well. Like even they all said, someone asked them a question, what is the rarest game you own? And even those, they pretty much, the people on this panel anyway, all gave exactly the same answer.
It wasn't Earthbound, was it?
No, it was all... every single one of them said Little Samson on the NES.
Oh, okay.
All of them.
So it can't be that rare.
No.
They've all got
it. But I'm just saying, it was very, very stock, very Nintendo-centric. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And that's the big difference between our gaming culture and the American gaming culture, is it's nowhere near as Nintendo-obsessed, basically.
Okay.
And the Nintendo obsession actually still goes to this day in terms of modernness as well. Like, I remember going to Walmart quite regularly.
Yeah.
And if you go to Walmart, first thing I was seeing a lot of the time was big, like, what would you even call them? Like, the signs? No, they've got, like, concrete, and then a sign, like the flappy signs. You know what I'm talking about?
A flappy sign?
Like you get
you saw a flappy sign?
Yes. There was flappy Nintendo signs everywhere, advertising Nintendo products.
See, when we go into game stores in the UK, for anybody that is currently watching overseas, it's pretty much... down this entire wall here, there'll be PlayStation 4 stuff. And down this entire wall here will be Xbox One stuff.
And there'll be a little tiny bit of
and then there'll be a little box about this big in the middle of the store with a handful of Nintendo games.
And it's always been like that. That's not at the moment, that's always been the case.
And if you go into our supermarkets...
they don't do Nintendo games in our supermarkets,
I think I've seen it. No, I went in the other day and they did.
They did? Really?
They had a whole aisle, small aisle, but an aisle nonetheless. And at the end of it, it had Hoovers.
Which supermarket was this?
This was Tesco.
Okay, Morrison's definitely don't have Nintendo games.
But right at the end, they had Hoovers, and then a little bit further down, they had I think it was some PlayStation 4 games, just the top recent ones.
Yeah.
And they had the top Xbox games there.
Was it like FIFA, Call of Duty, all those sort of games?
That kind of stuff, yeah.
Assassin's Creed.
And then a little bit closer towards the end of the aisle was a little bit that had Switch stuff, and it had 2 different types of case, a controller, a lot of signage, and Mario and Rabbids.
That's it.
There we go. For people that live overseas, this might amaze them.
Well, only in America, because I don't believe Nintendo do have a big presence in most countries, really.
I didn't realise there was other countries apart from us.
They're the only ones.
Was it just us?
I suppose they're the only ones who really watch these channels, because that's where most of the English first language population are in those 2 countries. So
yes.
It would make sense.
Yeah. We're not alienating everybody else.
Yeah. So yes,
that was a joke.
It was a joke. Yes. But yeah, what have we talked about so far? We talked about the beginning with the microcomputers, and we talked about the end, the present. So let's talk about in the middle a little bit. A lot of people might not know, but in the 16-bit era, in the US, the Super Nintendo dominated. In Europe, the Mega Drive dominated. So again,
that makes some sense.
Completely different.
Yeah.
So when I was in school, people used to think I was weird because I had a Super Nintendo, because they all had Mega Drive.
See, again, I don't remember that as a kid. I mean, I got mine really early because I was quite young. But I don't remember that at all.
What, the people thought Nintendo was weird?
Yeah, I had a Super Nintendo. Loved it. Really enjoyed it. Didn't know. I knew.
I was 4 years old.
Actually, Ryan had a Mega Drive.
So yeah, and everyone had Mega Drives.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have a Mega Drive, they probably was more like to have an Amiga than a SNES. I'd even say perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah. So yes, that was the big difference. And then after that, Sony have pretty much dominated here ever since. Past that.
Yeah.
There is one area Nintendo have always made a big impact here, though. There's one area. That's their handhelds.
Yes.
Their handhelds have always sold.
But to be fair,
but nowhere near what they do in the States.
Yeah. Relatively recently, there hasn't been a lot of competition.
No.
Really. So they're bound to win.
I suppose so. Like back in the day, I bet you more people had Game Gears here than and Atari Lynx.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine how popular you'd be if you were the only retro gaming YouTuber? That's what I mean. Yeah. You're going to dominate.
Yeah.
You don't. You know, there's no competition.
Yeah. I get you saying. So you're saying Nintendo, of course, their handhelds are popular now because they're the only ones.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You get PlayStation Vitas and stuff like that.
I would agree. Obviously. You don't get Vitas. I mean, it's been dead technically for years. Some games get released, but
what I'm saying is that you have Vitas, you've had Vitas, you've had PSPs. There's been a handful of others, a small handful of others.
But yes, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's covered a lot of the cultural differences.
I've learnt lots.
So yeah, I'd say that's pretty comprehensive. And one last thing. From what I've seen, they seem like following their I don't even think what would the word be. Their activities online, they seem a lot more obsessed with the Nintendo Switch than most Englishmen I've met. Yeah. But that would go back to the whole weird NES fetish. Yes, I suppose.
Nintendo-centric crap.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's the big difference. We're not Nintendo-centric where they are, I suppose. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this video, which I guess you are, if you're still here, that didn't make any sense, did it?
And you call me stupid again. You've made some serious cock-ups in this one.
But. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know in the comment section if you agree with us. Do you believe that America is Nintendo-centric? And do you believe that Europe is not so much? We'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Cheerio!
I'd like to give a huge shout out to Ben Sainty and Michael Keneally, as well as all of our other patrons. You help keep this channel going. We appreciate your support. And if anybody else would like to donate to this channel, there is a link in our description.